you're experts at creating the listing, finding potential buyers, and doing all those things that are necessary. However, when it finally comes down to it, if that buyer can't believe that they're going to be able to take that business and continue to at least get the income out of it that shows up on paper and beyond, they're not going to do it.
Well, and if they're not ready to do it, right, from multiple ways. I say if you're not ready from a paperwork, bookwork standpoint, and if you're not ready from a psychological standpoint.
That's fair. Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things where somebody gets involved, like yourselves, or if we can help somebody ahead of time. It's emotional. There's a lot of ties. These people have done this for their whole lives. They're employees of their family. It's that psychological, emotional part that I think that we help people to sort of detach a little bit, or because we're not part of it, we're not emotional into it, and we look at numbers and we look at the structures. How are you helping somebody on that side from the psychological piece?
In fact, it comes first. Because no change is actually going to be possible until you address sort of their why. And I know a lot of folks talk about the why these days, and there's a reason for that. It's because you actually can't escape it until you are able to sit down as a business owner and say, I've accomplished certain things. I'm very proud of it. My personal identity is tied up in this, but I have a higher why. I have a more important, bigger goal for myself, for my family, and I want to make that happen. That has to be more important than continuing to operate that business, which they get a lot out of. So the emotional part, I think, starts with not shying away from it, but embracing it in a way that helps the owner step back and look at that bigger picture.
If they're not ready to fight through the whole process, we're in trouble.
Yeah. So you're talking about people use the analogy of like this is like a child, and again, like I mentioned, their identity is tied up into being this business owner. And there's another stat out there that's really a discouraging one if you don't have a plan on how to fix it, and that is over 75% of all owners that sell that are successful in exiting deeply regret it a year later. And I don't think that's because we're not necessarily helping them maximize the dollar amount. There's more to it than that, right?
No, I think it becomes beyond money at times. For us, I want to know what their plan is afterwards before I know what their numbers are.
Yeah.
Because that's important. It's way different. Talking to somebody that's in their 50s, that's different than somebody that's 65 or 70.
Absolutely. And every family is unique. Just like every business is unique. And so we as the professionals can't shy away from having that conversation.
No, and I see that when I know somebody will fight and basically is behind the process, I know we're going to get through that process because this isn't an easy thing to do by any means.
It's not. And then the proverbial, elephant, how do you eat it? One bite at a
One bite at a time.
So, that's where, I think one of the best things we do professionally, and it's really any good professional that's working with folks on a personal basis that also has some science behind it, some technology, some sort of algorithmic, theoretical solve is not the differentiator is not how you can calculate to the fifth decimal place the exact answer on that. It's how far up you can take them on that curve before they lose sleep, before they give up, before they get discouraged. So we may find 20, 30 things that need fixing. We're going to focus one quarter by one quarter. What are those top 2 or 3 things that really are the most important ones on the list? Let's tackle those. Give them some good wins, and then build some momentum behind it. Once they see that the change is not painful, in fact, it might actually free up their time. It may actually reinvigorate employees. It might actually start to help them actually visualize the exit. Then things start humming.
Yeah, because they might put things in place that work more efficiently. They might realize that, hey, maybe people were being overworked, or we start looking at what people are doing, or maybe what the owner's doing. A lot of times we're trying to figure out what the owner's doing, and then we're trying to figure out how to either remove them or replace them, or have that piece handled by somebody else. But yeah, we see it quite often where they start to regret it at the end because they see how perfectly it's running. But when it's running perfectly, that's when you should be selling. When you're on the top, that's when you should be selling. Too many people come to both of us at the wrong time. And that's why I think it helps to get ahead of things. Like talking to you guys ahead of time, that's huge in our opinion.
Yeah, I agree. You can only do so much with window dressing, right? And
Lipstick on a pig?
Yeah, I didn't want to say it.
Come on, man.
But it's true.
Yeah.
Right? And the thing is, I always assume people are smart on both sides of the equation, right? So lipstick on a pig isn't fooling anybody, anyhow. I mean, I've seen unsophisticated buyers actually not do good due diligence. They come to me because they bought something a couple years ago. I just had a case like that last week. Really tough case. Retail business. They didn't understand that they really had to get inside and look at the inventory, et cetera. And turned out that half of it had expired and they had no recourse.
And that's where I think sometimes, again, we talked about emotion earlier, right? Sometimes emotion clouds what we're trying to do. So take it on the buyer side, emotion they might want it so bad that they don't double check the inventory. They might not, double check the financials or have their accountant get involved and double check financials. It's doing your due diligence, removing yourself, take a step back. I like to call it flying too close to the sun sometimes. When you're too close to it, that's why I think you need advisors, you need help, you need a team. We always tell people on our side, listen, I want you to have your family on board. I want you to have an accountant. I want you to have a lawyer. Look at this as a group, not just one person, because it takes a whole team to do this.
I agree. It's an interesting point you're making about who to bring inside the tent, so to speak, because we do also caution, until you're getting close to where you're able to do the listing and go, discretion's important because if you are going to take the path of working with an exit planner for a few years in advance, you definitely have to be careful to talk to employees, to bring in your trusted, executive.
We don't want you to tell anybody.
It's the fastest way to destroy value. So that's true. And at the same time, those that are around you that serve you personally or connected to you personally like family, yes, absolutely, because they're going to reinforce the right things. I'd add another really important person to that around the table conversation. That's a financial planner. And I think that's in large part because that person is also, just like you and I, going to be talking to them about their why and what this will mean to them and their bigger picture goals. And that reinforcement mechanism is going to be helpful for sure.
So what do you see that tends to derail deals? What are